is Merrin Macrae, and I'm a professor at the University of Waterloo in the Department of Geography and Environmental Management in Ontario, Canada. I specialize in hydrology and water quality with an emphasis mostly on agricultural systems. I'm married and I have two children who are both teenagers now, plus we have a dog and a cat, and I knit in my spare time. I was born in Northern Ontario, but our family moved to Southern Ontario when I was about 11 years old, about an hour's drive outside of Toronto. I have one older brother. My parents divorced when I was very young, and neither of them had university educations. I had a great family, but a modest upbringing. And so getting into university on scholarship was a really big deal. So I did my undergraduate degree at York in environmental studies. I actually thought I was going to go to school for environmental studies and then go into law school. I think I thought this because my mom thought I would make a good lawyer because she thought I liked to argue, which I always thought was funny. Anyway, I did my undergrad in environmental studies at York University, which is in Toronto, and then I ended up doing my master's in geography at York at the same institution, just a different department, and then I did my PhD in geography at Wilfrid Laurier University. So like I said, when I went to university, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and that really quickly changed. And I think it all started when I actually went to see a professor to ask a question during his office hours ahead of a midterm test. And we started to talk about research and fieldwork, and I ended up doing an undergraduate thesis by going up to Churchill, Manitoba. And so at the time, I thought I was interested in field work, but I really wanted to travel because I had never really been anywhere. And so it's not like I sought this out from an early age. I just kind of stumbled upon it. I didn't necessarily have a plan. So going to Churchill was really my first time away from home. It was actually even my first time on an airplane to get there. But when I did get there, I fell in love with fieldwork and water research, in particular, the way water moves and how this affects its chemistry. And I decided so much that I liked it so much that I just wanted to do more. So I still did my master's research in Churchill, Manitoba. So I spent actually about 3 summers up there doing field work. And then again, I really enjoyed it, but I still didn't know necessarily where I wanted to go next. I just knew that I really liked the research and I just wanted to do more. But I also knew that I wanted to shift gears a little bit. I still liked the hydrology, I still liked the water quality, but I really wanted to do something a bit closer to home. So I ended up getting into agriculture for my PhD. I ended up getting married between my master's and my PhD, and my husband actually started his PhD at the same year. So we were doing our PhDs together, but at different institutions. Yeah, after I graduated with my PhD, I did a postdoc at the University of Alberta, and also a short one at McMaster University. But right around the time that those ended, I had my first child. So when she was about 4 months old, I was hired at the University of Waterloo in this department where I've been ever since. So we had another child when I'd been in the job for only a couple of years, and I'm still continuing to work here. And I was promoted to full professor in just maybe a couple of years ago, 2019. So anyway, I've been here ever since, and I really, really love my job. Yeah, so growing up, in terms of my personal influences, probably obviously would be my mom in particular. She's always worked really, really hard and done her best, and has also really instilled a sense of balance and the importance of hard work, but integrity and kindness. And so I don't think I would be doing what I am today if I really didn't have that continuous support from her. I also have an older brother who has always been great. I think anybody that has a big brother knows that big brothers will sometimes test their patience. And so I think he probably made me, a little bit of a fighter, just as big brothers do. I also had some really great teachers who believed in me, even if I didn't necessarily believe in myself at times or think that I could do things. I definitely had teachers that whether or not it was giving me an award or giving me a little bit of a boost or just taking time and showing an interest in what I was doing, all of those things really make a difference in helping somebody get where they are. And then nowadays, really, like, a lot of my influence obviously is my family, my husband, and obviously my mom, my brother, my dad. They all still influence me, but really, I mean, my husband and my children obviously are a constant influence on my life. My kids are teens now, so we're very much in the thick of our busy years. But obviously my family, they surround me with love and fun and good times, but we also have to work together to get through the hard times. And so it's really, yeah, we learn from each other. I think, in terms of milestones, I think I didn't always have a plan. I think sometimes people go into university and into their professional life with a plan, and I don't think I had that. And I think, you know, I don't know why I didn't have a plan, except maybe I just didn't understand the things that I could do, maybe just didn't know what to shoot for necessarily. And so I mean, certainly going and having the experience of flying to the Arctic to do field work was a pretty big turning point, where it just took me to, or it wasn't the Arctic, it was the subarctic, but that really was a turning point because it just took me in a completely new direction and exposed me to a different world. And even just going to university in the first place was such an eye-opening experience. And and certainly going to the north, and then coming and moving to a new community, doing my PhD, meeting all new people. These were all milestones that change you, that help you grow as an individual. Obviously, getting married and having children were obviously significant milestones. Getting an academic position was a big one. I really, again, I think when you do a PhD, I didn't necessarily go into a PhD because I thought I was going to be a professor. I went into a PhD because I just really liked it. And then when I finished the PhD, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'd like to try to be a professor. But at the same time, I kind of thought it was a long shot, because I didn't necessarily, again, there's not necessarily a million jobs out there. So you always kind of have to have a backup plan. And I didn't exactly know what that was. But at the same time, I just, threw my hat in the ring, I guess, and applied for a position, and I got it, and I was really lucky. And so again, getting an academic position was another really great milestone. Other milestones were, I think professionally, some of the milestones are where you're starting out and you're just trying to figure out where your research program is going to go, and how to be a great professor and mentor and all of these things. And then sometimes you get these wonderful breaks where you just happen to talk to the right people, and you apply for some funding, and you're successful, and all of a sudden things start to take off, and you can do really, really exciting things and work with really great people. And so again, these are just some of these milestones and turning points that have really made such a wonderful difference. Well, I guess just on a personal level, I didn't come from a privileged upbringing, so I had to work really, really hard to get scholarships. And actually, now that I reflect on it, there was another milestone. Do you remember I mentioned that award? There was another, or not a milestone, sorry, like just things that changed where I am or what I do. There was one that I completely and totally forgot about that actually was a huge one. So I don't know whether you can weave it in or not, but again, I applied to universities, and I think I was just happy to just get in, right? My goal was just to get accepted. And not only did I get accepted, I got a scholarship for my tuition to be paid. And so again, that was one of those things where I just, all I thought is I would be lucky to get in. And in my wildest dreams, I never imagined that I would get a scholarship, and I did. And so again, that was one of those things, I got that award, and then I got that scholarship. And that's where those were the things that made me believe that I could actually do these things, because I really didn't understand it before that. And so, related to the barriers or the challenges, I didn't come from a privileged upbringing. And again, it was a single parent income. So I would say, I had to work pretty hard to although I didn't expect that scholarship, when I got it, I knew that it was renewable, which means if I could keep my grades up, I could have my tuition paid every year by the institution, which was really a big deal because we didn't have the means for me otherwise. I think I could get loans, but it would be pretty tough. So that was a lot of motivation. So it's really interesting how your upbringing or your challenges can shape the decisions that you made. And so fortunately, I really loved what I did, but I also had this motivation economically to really do as well as I could because I would have my tuition paid. So I'm really, really lucky that there are mechanisms in place like scholarships or government. There at the time there were government grants and things, and a great educational system in Canada that allowed me to get an education when I did come from modest means. So I would say some of my biggest challenges, and probably my biggest challenges, or maybe my biggest failures, I guess, would be not believing in myself when I should have. I really didn't think that I could do things. And if I always sort of had this thought that if I couldn't deliver 100% or exceed expectations, that I wouldn't even take a stab at things because I didn't want to let maybe people or myself down. And it's taken me a really long time, but I think I'm a lot better at taking opportunities and believing in myself now to take chances, to do new things. And I think some of that just comes with lived experience and some maturity, maybe. Okay. So what does success mean? Great question. I think that success to me is doing work that makes a difference. I want to be sure that I'm helping make the world a better place. So it isn't just professional success, excuse me, but like so professionally, I want to make sure that I'm doing work that helps people, that isn't just a niche interest to me. I want it to like I said, make the world a better place. But even outside of the professional environment, I just success to me is being a good person, being a good family member, being a mom, wife, daughter. I want to be a good neighbor and citizen. So success to me is really just knowing that I made the world a better place, or wanting to, just yeah, this desire to make the world a better place in all aspects of my life. So I think the social impact, so a lot of the work that I do is in agriculture and water quality. And so some of the things that I've contributed to are understanding the role of assisted drainage and water quantity and quality, or understanding differences in the suitability of land conservation practices, understanding how this might differ between colder agricultural regions and warmer or drier or wetter regions. And so I think that the societal impact that the work has is that we're doing our best to improve water quality, but also it's working together with farmers to do this in a very fair manner, because obviously we need to grow crops, we need to have food, they need to earn a living, but we also know that water quality issues can be a consequence. So what we're trying to do is meet all of these needs so that we can have sustainable farming that is going to reduce the environmental impact. So that's very much, I guess, the social impact is I don't know if I necessarily do big things. I mean, I know I drive a car, and I know I eat meat. I think that for me, I just try to live sustainably wherever I can, whether this is a lower meat diet or buying my food locally directly from the farmers, growing food, things like that. Walking, biking where I can. I do all of these things. In little ways, I try to make a lot of foods from scratch rather than using a lot of prepared or heavily packaged foods. I try to, open windows instead of using air conditioning, or turn off lights. So I don't know that I'm doing enough. I just try to make some of these decisions as best as I can in every little way that I can. It's a start, but I wish I wish I was doing more, I guess. I don't know that I would change anything. I really don't. Um, I guess I guess, like I said, it goes a little bit back to not believing in yourself. And so uh, I think maybe there were some things in my academic background where maybe I didn't take enough math courses, for example, because math doesn't come easily to me, and so I didn't think I would succeed. And again, it goes back to keeping those scholarships, right? I had to make choices and make sure, and so I didn't necessarily think I could do those things. And so sometimes, I think maybe I would go back and take some of those challenges, but at the same time, I aside from that, again, I think there were maybe times where I didn't believe in myself and didn't take risks or chances that I think, gee, I wish I had done that. But aside from that, I don't think there's anything that I would change or do differently, because I think everything that I've done has helped me get where I am today. And so if I undid that, I don't know that I would be where I am today, and I don't know that I would be the person that I am today. Sometimes the things that maybe don't go so well still help you later on, even if you don't realize it at the time. Really don't listen to the opinions of people who tell you you can't do things. Sorry, that sounds so negative, but honestly, I think sometimes there are assumptions about what you can achieve, either based on maybe your socioeconomic status or your gender or whatever, and sometimes it's not just you not believing in yourself. Sometimes others will express what those limitations might be, and you might listen to those things. And I guess maybe there's probably a more uplifting way to say it, and that is just basically believe in yourself, really. Um, yeah, I think I would tell myself to believe in myself, believe in what yeah, just believe in myself, and it's okay to take chances, and it's okay if you don't succeed, but you can't succeed if you don't take those chances. And so whether or not that's my inner voice or other people telling me that I can't do those things, I think I would say to Merrin, 16-year-old Merrin, don't listen to any of that, and it's okay to believe in yourself and take chances. I think I'm saying more of the same, but I think, yeah, the lessons learned, which just goes back to not what I would tell 16-year-old Marin as well. Lessons learned are maybe to, have you heard of the imposter syndrome? Okay. So sometimes I think there's this, I think a lot of us are familiar with the imposter syndrome um, where you kind of think that you're not supposed to be there, that somehow you've fooled everybody, you've gotten somewhere, whether it's to university or then grad school or in a job, and at some point everybody, somebody's going to figure out that it's all fake and you're actually not supposed to be there, and it's all going to come crashing down. And lots and lots and lots of people experience this, and it's definitely something that I always ask students about, and I'm going to say 80% of them feel that way. So it seems to be pretty widespread. And so I think my lessons learned are, again, don't to get rid of that imposter syndrome as best as you can, both in yourself and in others. So how many times have you heard somebody else speak and think, wow, that's so wonderful, oh my goodness, and it's great, and you celebrate it, but then maybe there's a little part of you that thinks, oh my goodness, I'm not at that level, or maybe I can't do those things. So what have lessons learned are to not let that imposter syndrome get to you, not let things that others might say, maybe they're not saying them to you or about you, but maybe they're saying them about their experiences or about themselves. But sometimes all of that can contribute to this imposter syndrome, and you have to learn to not give into those thoughts and put them aside and believe in yourself. But that's also something where I've really made a lesson to me, lessons that I've learned, is that I have a role to have other people understand that the imposter syndrome is something that most people feel, and that you have to not listen to it. You have to believe in what you do and take those chances and celebrate your successes, because you absolutely need to be where you are, and you deserve to be where you are, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm definitely at a stage in my career, and I think sometimes when you become a professor early on, it's about learning how to be a great teacher or mentor, or making sure that you get tenure, and then eventually, you know, making sure that you're publishing and contributing and this and writing lots of papers and bringing in grants and doing all of the things and contributing to the academy and things like that. And these are just all of the things that are part of our job. And so I think you're maybe your goals are about succeeding at all of these things. And I think then you get to a point where you realize, I think that you don't, okay, I think for a long time you see yourself as junior and other people as senior. And then at some point you sit back and you realize, well, I still don't see myself as a senior, but at the same time, I do now realize that because of the career stage that I'm at, and now that I'm a full professor, I have a responsibility to people around me to be a good mentor to junior colleagues. But also, I'm also at a point in my career where I want to sit back and think about, okay, what have I learned? What have I learned in the 17 years that I've been a professor? And what contribution can I make to society at this point in time that I think is going to make a really big difference in and have a societal impact? So it's, I would say, I'm sort of at a point where I'm not worried about what my next paper is going to be or what my next grant is going to be. It's going to be, how can I make sure that I am the best mentor and the best educator, and that I can have the best, like, just have really good and important societal impacts through, again, the science that I do, the communication that I do, but also my mentorship. How can I do all of these things now in an effective way? And that's sort of what I'm interested in doing now. I think, well, I guess in terms of water conservation, I mean, my specific research is more in the agricultural world, so it isn't necessarily widespread. So are we talking about conservation of water in general, or in sort of agriculture? Is it more related to what I do research wise? Okay, so we want to be able to grow food. We need to have production systems, whether they're crops or livestock. We want that. We want local food production as well. But we also know that it can have an environmental consequence. So it is our responsibility to do our best to minimize those impacts on the environment. But again, we know that we still need to remember that we have to grow food. So ultimately, I think my advice on impact is every little bit that you do counts. It's about working together to find out what the best things are that are going to work for your particular system that you're working in. But at the same time, sometimes people think that maybe they're just one farmer, or they can maybe do that one thing, and that's not going to make a big difference to a very big issue that's widespread. But every little thing that you do, and if we all do little things together, those collectively can make a big difference, and it's worth it. So if you can do it, do every little thing that you can. I really like what I do. Honestly, like new questions or new tools or exciting people that I get to work with. I love questions. I love solving problems, and I love a challenge, and I like communicating that. So honestly, I think maybe a honestly, the conquering the challenges that I face every day, whether or not it's a research question, or hey, I have to give a lecture today or a presentation today, and I just want to do the best that I can at that. So I really, yeah, I really like challenges. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going on and on, but anyway, I think that especially some of the issues, some of the research questions definitely challenge me and really excite me, and coming up with new, really creative ways to answer questions in a meaningful way. Those are maybe some of my favorite days. Whether or not that's playing with data or writing a story or giving a presentation or teaching in a classroom, there's so many different ways to get this across in creative ways. And I love coming up with new ways to do these things. No, I'm sorry, I can't think of a single thing. I'm sorry. Can't think of a poem or a quote or anything. I mean, I was definitely a lifelong reader, and I loved stories and things that would just take me off of the planet, like just take me into another world where I could sort of dream. Those are some of the things, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that I had like a poem or anything that necessarily inspired me. I guess these were just things that I liked to do that made me happy. Be the best person you can be in every area of your life, personally, professionally. Just be the best you that you can be. Or I say to myself, be the best Merrin that you can be, and be a good person everywhere. I think the first time I do something, I'm always a little bit, it's like I want to do it, but I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not sort of one of those people that is going to take a running leap off of the cliff and jump into the water below. I'm going to sort of stand there at the edge and think about it, and really think about it before I do it. And then if I decide, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to jump in. And then at that point, it's like, all right, now you climb up the slope. And next time, now that I know it's not going to kill me, I'm going to absolutely go and take a flying leap and hurtle off of that cliff into the water pool below. But the first time, I'm going to think about it before I do it. So that's kind of maybe the way I've always been with just about everything that I do. So again, it was like I was a little bit cautious, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go up. And then after that, there was like no holding back. I'm like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there. And even with traveling, I hadn't really traveled. Now we travel every chance I get. It's like, let's go here, let's go there. I want to experience the world, and I love it. But I had to kind of get that first experience to know that, yeah, this is interesting. This is how you do it, because I had no idea. One of the things that I'm doing in terms of just in terms of mums in academia, I guess I'm trying to lead by example. I have two kids, and my husband and I are both professors. And so I think one of the things that I think it was maybe subconscious at the beginning, but then over time it's become a conscious effort, is to lead by example and normalize healthy work-life balances. Everybody used to get used to seeing us. We would bring we work in the same area, my husband and I, and so if we wanted to go to conferences, we brought our kids with us. And so now I see lots of other people that will come with families and in tow, that will be with their families at conferences. And I like to think that maybe we contributed a bit to that by doing that. And so I'm working with my own grad students to create work-life balance and develop flexible projects or interactions with students, whether or not that's around family or religious observances, or for whatever that's needed. So that is something that I have always kept at the forefront of everything that I do, is to make sure that you maintain balance. So I talk about work-life balance. I talk about family life. I'm not afraid to say I can't come in, I've got a sick child, or I have to take somebody to a doctor's appointment. I'm not afraid to say, hey, I can't stay late because that conflicts with activities or dinner or whatever. And I think by leading by example, more people realize that that's important. Well, I think they know it's important, but I think sometimes people are afraid to do those things because they're afraid that maybe that hasn't been something that they could do before. And I think that by very clearly leading by example, more people realize, more of the people that are younger than you coming through the system realize that it is okay, and you keep that important. I would say yes. I would say yes. I would say, though, that there are people that were my mentors that had greater challenges than I, and I'm very grateful to them for paving the way for me to be here now. But as far as being a female in a STEM field, it's really been historically male dominated. And so I think maybe one of the challenges is maybe being the only one, or there's very few of us. And so you might find that you're the only one at where you are, and then there might be somebody else, but they're the only female at their institute, or not at their institution, but in their department or something like that. So I would say one challenge is that that just not really maybe feeling a little bit isolated at times. And so I've come to realize that some of my role models were other females that were in my field, and I realized how much them being visible to me made me realize that I could do these things too. And so yeah. Maybe there's one other thing, just in the work that I do a lot of field work, and so sometimes we have to work with wiring or engines or just lots of maybe technical things that we have to do, and you know, maybe not as many young girls are taught some of these things. I'm not saying all boys are either, but I think that they're more, little girls are maybe less likely to be taught how, not necessarily now, but historically have maybe been less likely to have been taught their way around an engine or wiring or whatever. And so I've had to maybe be a little bit just, oh, I've got to learn this because I've got to figure it out. So I would say that's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's also, again, one of those things that's, I think, made me a better person and better at what I do. So again, I wouldn't change it. It's just one of those things.